Have you ever gone for a walk in the forest and all of a sudden you come across this barrier in the middle of the road that tells you that some forestry activity is going on, that tells you you can't continue your walk? This is something that happens quite regularly in our forest because we have a productive forest where we actively manage it. And in this video, I want to talk about the hazards that come from entering such a forestry site. I see from my comments that some have a view of the forest of being this peaceful place where everything should be left alone. So I want to cover a little bit the balance that we try to strike between opening up the forest for tourism activities, but also obviously using it for what it's meant to do, which is timber production, and how we harvest the timber, and give a little bit of a behind the scenes view of what happens when you come up to one of those barriers. Hi, my name is Johannes, and among other things, I take care of a forestry business in Germany, and that is a productive forest. What many people don't know is that forest is owned by people, by companies, by individuals, and it is the means to get timber that is then used to build homes and furniture and so on. That timber needs to come from somewhere, and most forests, at least in Germany, are productive forests, and a forest can look extremely beautiful, can be extremely biodiverse, and still function as a productive forest. This video is part of a series where I dove into the day-to-day activities that goes on in the forest, and I tried to give a little bit of a behind-the-scenes sneak peek of what decisions have to be made and how we think about certain decisions. A major movement in this industry has been the shift to higher safety standards for workers. That's because when you're dealing with trees that are very tall, very thick, and one of those trees hits you, you have very little chance. Branches fall down, a lot of things can happen in forestry, and that's why we have to take it very seriously how we think about safety for the workers, because nobody wants to be in a position where a human life is at risk. This has been an industry-wide adoption of higher safety standards and also additional productivity that comes with enabling machines to think and calculate. And one of those pieces of machinery is the forest harvester. And that is something that really helps us to put the operator inside of a box, inside of a cage, so that he's shielded by bulletproof glass. That way, whenever a branch falls down or even a tree would fall down accidentally in the direction of the operator, he would still be safe. So reducing humans on the forest ground while doing such forestry operations is key to increasing safety. And that is also why we put barriers up to prevent people to visit the sites and to climb around while the machines are operating. But even on the weekends, trees may be lying all over the place. They might snap, or something else might happen. If people climb around that site, that is very dangerous, and that's why we try to keep people out and try to do that for their safety. It is a challenge to balance these forestry activities with obviously the tourism requirements that we also want people to experience the forest. We think that the forest is beautiful. We want other people to also experience that, and we like people going to the forest and seeing what it's like to breathe the fresh air, to have a look at nature, touch the ground, and really immerse themselves in nature. So we want to have both. We want to offer tourism in the forest. A very popular destination in Friedenfels is the so-called Weißenstein, and that's an old ruin that just emerges at the top of the hill. That is a very impressive structure that is a combination of granite that was there just by nature, and then people in the Middle Ages just building up little walls and building up a castle around these rocks. And so this rock formation, together with the walls that people built, they make a very attractive tourist destination. And to get there, people have to walk on forest roads that were paid for with private funds and that are financed by the logging and forestry activities that go on in and around the area. It is important that people actually abide by these rules, and if there is a barrier, you shouldn't cross it, even if that means you maybe can't go to your destination on this particular day. Forests in Germany and forests in Bavaria, that's where Friedenfels is, they're used to produce timber, produce wood. And this wood, as I said earlier, is used later on in building houses and building furniture, building anything really. It's such a great raw material because it grows back. Concrete doesn't grow back. Concrete actually has a lot of emissions in the process, and wood is actually a capture of CO2. So if you take a wooden beam, that is literally stored CO2, stored carbon. So by building your house out of wood, you're actually doing the environment a favor because you're locking up that CO2 for as long as that house is standing. It is our goal that this timber doesn't come from plantations abroad or just monocultural plantations where there's only one species and that particular spot is only used for producing one species and like one age class. Everything is just very stale. It's really what we think forestry should be, is to have a very diverse forest that allows animals to live in it, that allows fungi to live in it, a whole biodiverse system that is just enabling and feeding from each other, and therefore we promote something that is good for the environment but also use it to produce timber. That's why many forests you visit, you can hardly see that they're used for timber production, but that's what keeps the lights on, basically. So I hope this video has given you a little bit of a peek behind the scenes why these barriers are so important and why you shouldn't trespass when there's a barrier in the forest. Just go another way and stay on the roads. Don't go venturing on your own. That is very bad for the habitat of wildlife, for species that really are used to the calm, the peace and quiet. So they're used to people frequenting the roads, but as soon as you leave the roads and go into their habitat, they don't like that at all. You disturb the system. That is not a good alternative. Just turn around and go somewhere else. Thank you for following along this series on forestry, education and real life experience, and subscribe to my channel to stay in touch, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.